Hello, everyone. Welcome to Start the Week with Spencer. This is our weekly webinar where parents join from all around the world and ask questions about kids with special needs, the Doman Method, early childhood development. So wherever you are in the world and wherever you're joining from, whether you're watching this right now on Facebook, Instagram, or on YouTube, go ahead and type your questions into the comments box, and we will get to your questions in order. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about the Doman Method Encyclopedic Knowledge Program. So the Doman Method is probably most famous for its reading program. And so we teach children, even children with special needs at a very young age, how to read. And we do that primarily with the use of enlarged print size. Many children with special needs have difficulties with reading. They have sometimes significant visual issues that makes it very hard to read small print. And so we teach children to read using large, bold print because it makes it easy for the child to see. So for example, I was meeting with a family earlier this morning, and their child has an autism diagnosis, and they were telling me not only with this enlarged print was their daughter able to learn to read, but also they saw a great change in the child's speech. The girl was using many of the vocabulary words she was seeing in the Doman reading program in her daily life when speaking to her parents. But I won't be talking much about the reading program today. Of course, if you have questions, you can post them. Today, I want to talk a bit about encyclopedic knowledge and how we teach children information through images. Many children with special needs are better visual learners than they are auditory learners, meaning they are really helped by the use of visual aids in their learning. Because very often, and I'm not saying every child, but for the majority of children, they often have a good visual memory. If they're taught something which is taught in a repeated way, it's usually quite easy for them, if it's done in the right way, for them to learn the information and retain it. So what we do is we teach children by using pictures, but we do this in a very specific way that allows the child to learn quickly, but also improve their retention. So as you can see here, I've got a picture of a card. This is called the Doman card of a giraffe. And so the whole idea behind this program is to take information that children don't normally learn in their home and teach them through the use of pictures. So let's look at a few things about this card that I'm holding up. So the first thing when we're teaching a child, using pictures, the first thing is we want to make sure the image is precise. So we're not going to use some kind of like silly cartoonish image. We're going to use an accurate representation of what it is we're trying to teach them, in this case, a giraffe. The second thing is we don't want to have anything in the background of the picture. If you could imagine if this was a picture of a giraffe and there were trees in the background and maybe a lion, and we were to tell the child this is a giraffe, well, the child may not know exactly what it is we're talking about, right? With everything in the background, which is a distraction. So what we do is we have a plain background without distractions that make it easy for the child to know exactly what it is that we're teaching them, in this case, a giraffe. The third thing is we give them the unambiguous name of that, whatever the card is that we're showing them. So we don't say animal, right? We don't say tree. We tell them precisely what it is they're seeing. So we would say, for example, African elephant, right? Or we would say tulip instead of flower, so that the child knows exactly what it is we're teaching them. By being precise, we're giving the child the most accurate piece of information. We're also taking the outside world and bringing it into the home. And that brings me to the last thing. When we're teaching a child through images, we're teaching them things that are new. So we're not going to show the child a picture of a chair that they see in their environment every day, because we can just point to a chair and say that's a chair. Or if they see an apple, right, in their home every day, we can say this is an apple. We don't have to show a picture of it. But when it comes to teaching a child using images, we're going to take the information from the outside world and bring it into the home. And when you do this, it's pretty amazing what children are able to learn. One one example of this is I was once with a child, and she had learned many of these cards, including flags. And so she was there with her parents. This girl had been diagnosed with cerebral palsy, so she had significant physical issues. And I think she was about 3 years old. And so she had been taught many of these cards, including flags. And so I started out by just holding up two cards and saying, where's the flag of Italy? And she was able to show me. And then I said, where's the flag of India? And she knew what that was. And then I did something. I picked up two cards. She was from Italy, this child. I picked up the flag of Italy and I picked up the flag of the United States. And I said, which of these is the flag of my country? And it was interesting because she had never been told I was from the United States. But I saw this 3-year-old, she looked at both cards and you could kind of see the wheels, turning in her head. She wasn't able to talk, but you could see the wheels kind of turning in her head. And she pointed at the American flag. And what I think she was thinking was, well, I don't know where he's from, but I know I'm from Italy. And he's obviously from some different place because he speaks a different language. So she picked the United States. And really, that shows that children aren't just able to take in information, they're able to intuit things based on the information that they've learned. And so that's just one of many, many stories. But we find that when we teach children using images, not only does it greatly enhance the information that they know, it creates a curiosity and interest in the child to learn more, right? So that child will be interested in learning about new subjects because of the amount of information that they've been taught, right? The human brain is the only container that the more you put into it, the more it can hold. And so as children learn more, their capacity to learn increases and their interest in learning increases. So if you're interested in learning more, this program is called Doman Cards. It's one of many cognitive programs in the Doman Method. And we use it to teach both children with special needs and children alike. All right, so I see that I have some guests here. So I'll start by adding Colleen. Hi, Colleen. Hi.
Hi.
There we go.
There we are. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good. Very good. So Colleen is the Director of Representatives. So Colleen is the first person at Doman International that talks to new parents when they have questions about what it is we do at Doman International. Colleen, and I see we've also got Miriam here, who I'll bring in a second. Miriam's going to ask us some questions. Colleen, could you just start by talking a little bit about appointments at Doman International? Because we have different locations. Could you talk about what an appointment looks like and where we do them?
Absolutely. So the appointments are sort of the cornerstone of what we do. Even our course grew out of a need to help families who were waiting for appointments. So the appointments are a typically 3-day time with the staff. Families come to see us in our offices just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We also see families at our campus in Italy, in Tuscany, where I was this summer, which is amazing. And we also see families for evaluations in Miami, in Santa Barbara, California, in India. We have a team there as well, and in Serbia. But when families come for their appointment, the first day is spent with the evaluation first, so the staff can get a baseline of information about the child. Parents are there for the whole thing because we are partners with parents. So during the evaluation, the staff will take your child through each step of the developmental profile to establish what's going on in their brain, and that gives us a clear picture. So then the staff can start to plan the program that they're going to teach you. But after that first evaluation, the staff sit down with our families and discuss, goals. What are the short-term goals, the long-term goals, dreams for your child, and also what is your schedule like? Because our staff are very concerned with making a practical plan for families. They don't want to design a program that's going to be impossible for people to carry out. So knowing what the parameters are is key. And a lot of families say that's something that they never had before. That attention to detail of their own schedule. Sometimes it's okay. Well, you need to go to the therapist 4 times a week for an hour at a time, and good luck figuring that out. And if you've got other kids or the children are in school, you're working. I mean, it can be pretty hectic. So our staff are, they really want to make sure that this is going to be a program that the whole family can manage, that it's something that you're going to grow into over time, so that it's stable, and sustainable. And then after that, families are free to go. Usually by the afternoon, have some dinner, go to the park, whatever, relax, and then they come back on the second and the third days to be taught the program that the staff has now designed for their child. And so our staff will take families through every part of the program and answer all of the questions there in person, which is really key. I think for a lot of our families, they say that even though 3 days and traveling initially seems like, whoa, that's a lot to plan, they're always glad that they did it, because it's like a boot camp, a little miniature boot camp of, okay, I had all this like good concentrated time, great energy, and now I feel ready to go home and put this into practice. I am having trouble hearing you, Spencer. Are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, great. Thank you, Colleen. So I was just going to ask Miriam. Miriam, give me a thumbs up when you're ready to join us. I see a thumbs up. Perfect. So I'm going to add Miriam here. So, Miriam is here because I asked on our Instagram page if there was anyone who was brave enough to kind of join us and ask questions live, and Miriam was the brave volunteer. How are you, Miriam?
Very well. How are you? How are you, Colleen? We just exchanged messages a little while ago.
We did. Yeah, it's so good to see you.
Same.
So, Miriam, if you're comfortable, maybe just by starting out, and of course, don't you don't have to say anything you're not comfortable with saying. But if you don't mind, could you start out maybe by telling us your child's age, if you have a diagnosis,
So we
and
do
then
have a
tell us your question.
diagnosis. He's 3 years old presently. We've been working very hard with his occupational therapist, his physiotherapist, and speech therapist. He also gets food therapy. But the results aren't, I guess, as fast paced as we'd anticipated they would be in him catching up. He's got global developmental delay caused by encephalopathy, and he's been diagnosed with epilepsy as well, type 43. His seizures, it's been a year and a half, have been under control, but that's due to his diet. None of the medications were working. We switched to the ketogenic diet, weaned him off all his medications, and now, since August last year, he hasn't had a single seizure. His neurologist informed us last year that once we get control of his seizures, that's when he will gradually start picking up and try and achieve all his milestones. He's quite behind his milestones. That's why I was interested in the Doman method, how effective it has been with children who have delayed milestones. And Colleen did send me a link to your website where a child with a similar diagnosis as my son has caught up with her milestones, which is why I wanted to enroll in your English course as well.
Well, thank you for that breakdown. I'm really, really impressed, both that you were able to control the seizures through diet, which is something that we've been aware of for a long, long time, but also you were able to wean off the medication because of that. And by the way, to add to what the neurologist said, I think also the fact that you were able to wean off the medication probably has been incredibly helpful for his development,
It has.
because a lot of anticonvulsants are linked with lowered IQ. They
And it was affecting his muscle tone, his reflexes, his responses, everything. There was a point where he was just a floppy baby and he wouldn't respond to anything. Now he makes eye contact, he tries holding a conversation by babbling. There's a lot of improvement over the
Yeah.
past 1 year or so that we've seen.
Yeah. And so to your question, let's talk a little bit about global developmental delay and
Sure.
epilepsy. And by the way, most children that we see come with multiple diagnoses at
Mm-hmm.
this point. When we look at global developmental delay, uh, a child who is obviously behind age level in various areas of development, the program is focused on improving the child in a holistic way, the Doman International program. So actually, one of the first things that we do with children is we evaluate them in the six most important areas of development. Now, I don't think you'll be able to see it very clearly from here, but you'll have to kind of take my word for it. So this is the developmental profile. It's our tool
Right.
for measuring child development. And when we're measuring a child's development, we're really looking at the six most important neurological abilities that we have. So we have, first of all, vision, which is the ability to see. We have hearing, and we have tactility, right? So the ability to see, hear, and feel. These are the three most important sensory areas. This is how your son, and in fact, all people learn from the environment around them, right? And then on the other side of the profile, we have the most important motor areas. We have mobility, language, right, which is speech, and then manual competence, the ability to use hands. So when we design a program for a child, we're looking at these most important sensory areas and motor areas to help the child move up in their development. What the developmental profile does is it shows the most important milestones for a child to hit
Right.
in the first 6 years of life. Because even though the human brain continues to develop well past 6 years of age, for most children, average children, they achieve the biggest developmental milestones in the first 6 years of life. So what we do is we design a program for the child to help them hit these milestones in all six areas. And we do that by recommending a holistic program which focuses on first of all nutrition, which you already commented on. You've already kind of realized that diet itself can have an impact on his development since it impacted his seizures. We look at diet, we look at mobility development. What are different mobility exercises we can do to help the child progress? Cognitive development, right? Which I think you mentioned he's babbling, but probably he doesn't have many words that he uses.
Not many words. Sometimes he'll say okay. He's said mama on a couple of occasions. It's not consistent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So with the cognitive part of the program, we do focus on intellectual development. So you saw me
Right.
just briefly mentioning at the start of the session, like early reading program. We have an early math program, encyclopedic knowledge.
Yeah.
But we also have speech development programs as well,
Right.
which are all included in that cognitive area. And then last but not least, we have respiratory programs that are focused on increasing oxygenation
Right.
to the brain. And one of the things, Miriam, which is not really widely understood, when a child has epilepsy and a seizure happens, uh, functional brain imaging has shown when a seizure occurs in a part of the brain, immediately after the seizure occurs, oxygen and blood and glucose are rushed to that region of the brain. So the seizure is occurring very often because of a lack of oxygen. Okay. And oxygen is the food of the brain. So with our oxygenation program, we're focused on increasing oxygen delivery to the brain. When that happens, the brain functions better, but often the need for seizures can decrease or even go away entirely. And so now I know that you've been able to control his seizures for the time being, but this program would also help in preventing them from hopefully ever returning in the future. And so when we combine this holistic program, Miriam, obviously what we're trying to focus on the most is getting results.
Right.
How can we get the child to improve in every area of their development, hopefully and as quickly as possible. Colleen, anything that you'd like to add to that?
Not really. I mean, I guess just beyond the fact that, yeah, Mariam and I were able to correspond a little bit before this meeting, which is great. And I was so happy, actually, I went and found that success story right away.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's on our website, but I was like, oh, that's exactly perfect. Like, I was so glad because we do have 70 years of experience. And so the vast majority of diagnoses, I mean, every kid is an individual. So we approach everything in that way, knowing that every kid is going to need their own particular approach. But the understanding of how the brain develops, how we can stimulate it, to help the kids to reach those milestones. And again, like to make up that gap, to start moving faster. Glenn always said, the catch up phenomenon is real. If you have all the right pieces in place, the kids do start to, often start to accelerate quite a bit, and that's exciting for everybody. So.
Yeah, and Miriam, actually, one of the questions she had sent in advance, Colleen, was about when the next Doman Method course was in English.
Yes. So right now, our next course is scheduled for 3rd of February.
Right.
So that's the next online course. Our next appointments, though, because I know you're in the UK, is that right?
No, I'm presently in Pakistan. We're back
Oh,
and
I'm
forth
sorry.
between
Yes.
Canada and Pakistan. So right now I'm in Pakistan.
Oh, okay. So our next appointments in Italy will be in January, and then our appointments are ongoing in the Philadelphia area. So just for you to have kind of a thought to the future, that's always an option too, because you don't have to take the course first in order to schedule an appointment. We could always do that concurrently. So just so you know.
Yeah.
Miriam, could I ask you a quick question? How did you find
Sure.
out about our program?
So I follow Oakley on Instagram.
Got it. Wonderful.
Because his seizure activity was very similar to my son's, and quite by chance, I started following Acorn updates by Oakley. It's been a while, and his mum had mentioned traveling to Italy. She put it up on her Instagram to get him evaluated, and then she's written really good reviews about following the Doman method, how it's helped with his vision, it's helped him focus, and she's seen a significant improvement in him ever since she started the method. I believe it's been 6 months for him doing it.
Yeah, I think for Oakley it's a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So
year.
I think it's been 6 months since I've been following him on Instagram. That's how I learned about the method, and then I looked up your website as well. And 2 days ago, you guys were offering these free downloadable books. I tried downloading them; it didn't happen. So yeah,
It didn't work.
I'm going to
didn't work.
find out. I did see that message. I'm going to find out why that is. So, and
Yeah.
we'll get them.
Okay, yeah, that's a technical issue. Thanks, Colleen. If you could figure that out, that'd be great. Okay, Miriam, another thing that kind of came up in some of the messages back and forth was about, did we have any experience with, epilepsy or developmental delay that might be caused or impacted by a genetic diagnosis?
Yes.
And so, a large number of the children that we see come to us with genetic diagnoses. Okay. And in fact, the Doman method got its start 70 years ago with my grandfather. And back at that time in the 1950s and 60s, there were only a few children that were really diagnosed with genetic conditions because genetic testing wasn't really widely available or done
Absolutely.
at that time. But now, I don't know the exact percentage, but a significant number of children on our program have a genetic condition. And what we've known for decades is that a genetic diagnosis does not necessarily mean the child can't progress. And in fact, you even your son's situation kind of proves that, right? In the sense like, you were able to make certain holistic changes to his life, and seizures were able to stop. And so, maybe without going into too long a speech, and I've talked about this on prior webinars. We all have our own genetic makeup, but then there's another field of study called epigenetics, which studies which of our genes are activated and which of our genes are not. About 80% of genes in our body are not expressed. They basically sit there unexpressed. And so it turns out that our environment, our stimulation, our diet, our physical activity impacts which genes are activated and which ones are not. And this has been seen for a long time, for example, with people who, let's say, smoke constantly and who don't exercise. If you track their epigenetics as they age, you'll start to see certain genes that are more likely to express cancer, for example, start to become activated. And but while someone who maybe doesn't do those same exact, doesn't smoke, or engages in physical activity or eats healthy, their genes will be expressed differently. So the point is that even with children with genetic conditions, how their genetics are expressed can greatly differ based on the stimulation and activity that they get. We've even seen children with genetic diagnoses like Down syndrome that have very distinct facial features.
Yes.
Parents will often report to us after doing our program for some time, like, oh, their facial features are starting to change. We've even had in our clinic in Italy recently, we had 6 children the same week with a Down syndrome diagnosis. And some of the children who had been on our program for several years, some of the other parents told me, I didn't even realize that child had Down syndrome, because some of those, facial features were so mild compared to what they once were. It's pretty startling. So yeah, so in the end, we aren't only our genetic makeup. We're also about the stimulation and activity that we do. Yeah, and that's very important for kids like yours.
Got it.
Miriam, any other questions from your side?
These are the ones that I could think of right now. I'll take Colleen's email address. I'll keep in touch with her. And then I want to schedule his evaluation and then obviously enroll for the February course. And another question that I do have is, would you do his evaluation in person or can it be done online as well?
Colleen, are you okay with taking that question?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do evaluations and appointments online. Now, our ideal, of course, is to see the kids in person when possible, but we recognize that that's, for a lot of families, that's a big hurdle for a lot of reasons. So we have gotten our online appointments to really be effective. Our staff, in presenting our course online, have learned the best ways to coach families, and of course we are teaching you at the same time, because you are the world's leading expert in your son, and you always will be. So by partnering with you in that way, we are able to have really effective online appointments. Those are structured a little differently, because we don't want anybody sitting in front of the computer screen for 3 days straight.
Right.
That's awful.
Yeah.
So we schedule a series of sessions that take stretch it out over about a week to 10 days. It gives you a lot of time. And after your evaluation and appointment, you are working with us for 6 months. So that time at the beginning is kind of the intensive, but then you're still with us for those 6 months of the program that the staff have designed, so that any questions that come up, any issues, we're there to help you solve them. Yeah, definitely.
And does somebody monitor as we're obviously implementing the program at home, right? Do we have a system where we report back, check in with your team?
Yes.
Monthly or say bi-monthly?
That's exactly right. Yeah, at the bare minimum, all of our families have a monthly call with their staff coach Their staff
Yeah.
coach is their primary liaison, but all of the staff work together in designing each child's program. But for families who are just getting started, your staff coach expects to hear from you more frequently, obviously, than once a month. They want to be involved in anything so that you're not wasting any time wondering, are we doing this right? Is this what it should be?
Yeah.
That they're there to help you.
Yeah, and Miriam, to that point, that staff coach, we for each family when they join our program, we pick a staff coach that we feel would be most helpful for the child's greatest needs, right? So if the child's greatest needs are speech related, we'll give a staff coach that we feel is more specialized in that area, or if it's mobility, that area. So we take that into account. And then also, that staff coach is there to make sure every question of yours gets answered. And so you have their email address, you have their phone number, and they stay in close contact with you.
Yeah.
You get to know them well, and they get to know you and your son well.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining, Mariam.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Our pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Take
We'll be in
care.
touch. We'll be in touch soon. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, look, now I will go to just to see if we have other questions here. I do see one question on Instagram, and this was following up on our Doman cards conversation. This parent is asking, hi, Spencer. My daughter's 4.5 months old. Can I start the BITS program with her? So this comes from our conversation earlier where we were talking about teaching a child through images. So interestingly, you can begin this program when your child is able to see detail. So when I say see detail, I mean a child who's able to see the people and objects in their environment. So my first question to this parent, 4.5 months old is young. Some 4.5-month-olds see detail very well, especially if they've been raised on our program and have received a lot of visual stimulation. But for some 4.5-month-olds are not ready for this quite yet. So my first question to this parent would be, does your child recognize your face? So for example, if I was standing next to mom or dad, would the child know that's mom or dad and that's a stranger that I've never met before? If your child is able to do that, that means they see detail. Another way of testing detail is if you get close to your child and give them a big smile, does your child smile back to your smile, even if you make no noise? That's very important because some parents will just instinctively smile and they start chattering away like, hey, how are you? And the child might smile, but maybe it's because the child is responding to parent's voice rather than the face. So the best thing to do is you just get kind of face to face with your child, make the biggest smile, give your child the biggest smile that you can, see if your child responds to that smile with a smile. If your child is able to do those things, recognize your face, smile to a smile, that means your child sees detail and they're ready for these cognitive parts of the program. Yeah, and if we talk about in terms of the reading part of the program, remember that even for tiny children, because sometimes parents are under the idea that, a child can only start to learn to read at 5 or 6 years of age when they go to school. Remember that there's a small area of our brain that we use for reading called the visual word form area. So for example, when I show this to you, your brain looks at this word and the visual word form area recognizes that word as learning. Okay. And so the visual word form area is actually already developed and organized at birth. This was something my grandfather really stumbled upon when a 3-year-old who had a brain injury named Tommy came into his office, and his parents had taught him to read at home. And my grandfather, Glenn Doman, was completely in awe of this. Like, how is it that a 3-year-old who has a severe brain injury, can't even walk, is reading, and average 3-year-olds can't do it? And that's what started him that's actually what led to the reading program. Keep in mind, Glenn Doman was not a teacher. He wasn't an early childhood educator. He was a physical therapist. I don't think at any moment in his early life did he think he was going to get into teaching children to read at a young age. But when he saw this, he was so struck by it. He was just an endlessly curious person. And he said, all right, well, if this kid can do it, well, I've got to create a way to do this with all children. And that's why he ended up developing the reading part of the program. And now, why is the visual word form area, this reading area of the brain, developed at birth? I don't have the answer to that yet. It's an astonishing thing, but it is. And so my grandfather realized quite quickly that even very young children, tiny kids, could learn how to read. And he said, well, I may not fully understand exactly why this is the case, but it works, so let's do it. And now we know, because of functional brain imaging, why they're able to do it. And we've continued with the Doman reading program and with fantastic results. In fact, especially with children with special needs, our reading results are the highest performing in terms of getting children to read. They are the most impressive statistics that we have. All right. I am going to now open up the questions to everyone else. If you are joining me right now on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, go ahead and type your question in. We've still got a little bit of time left. I always urge people, don't wait too long to ask your questions because we might run out of time. So go ahead and type them in and we'll get to them. Colleen, I'll put you on the spot for a second. Yeah. So you chose to do the Doman Method, reading program, math program with your daughter. What led you to do that? Why did you choose the program?
Well, I was raised on it. So it was, I already knew it was effective. I already knew it worked. And we loved it. So I'm the oldest of 4 kids. And my mother, when I was just about 4 years old and she was pregnant with my youngest brother, she was going a little stir crazy at home because she was a nurse by training, but she wasn't nursing anymore because obviously 3 small kids and another one on the way. And my father heard an ad on the radio for the course with Glenn Doman, and we lived very nearby. And he came home and he told my mother, "Oh, I heard about this course, and the kids could learn to read and play music and do math and all of that kind of thing very young. It sounds kind of interesting." And my mother said, "Well, sure, that's great, but I have to go somewhere every day for a week. Who's going to look after the kids?" And my father said, "Oh, I'll stay home and watch them, no problemo." And she said that was it. She didn't even care what the course was about at that point. It was a week out of the house. But but she said within a couple of hours, like the first couple hours of the course, it was just completely enthralling. And she was so excited about the possibilities. And and we never looked back. So it really changed our whole lives. So yeah, and it was fun. I mean, I just remember that primarily as a kid, just having fun. And I did start to read very quickly. I mean, obviously, my parents had been reading to us. I think that parents who gravitate towards this program, even if their kids are not babies, they've already been intuitively doing the things that parents do. Reading to their kids, explaining things to them, playing with them. Giving them lots of opportunity to learn. So it was a natural fit. And so then when I had my daughter, it was just natural to continue that. I will say my program was much less structured than my mother's was because I could afford to be a little more relaxed about it, and I also only had 1 kid as opposed to 4. So
yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, big. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's a good segue. We got another question that came in from Ava, who said on Instagram, "This is new to me. What programs are under the umbrella of your overall program?" So I think, Ava, let me just take 2 minutes and run through a little bit of history for you, because the Doman method is a wide encompassing uh, program, okay, having to do with child development. And so I think if I talk a little bit about history, it'll help you. So in the 1950s, my grandfather, Glenn Doman, who was a physical therapist, was working with patients who had sustained brain injuries and who had developmental delays. And he realized that a lot of the things he had been taught in school that he was doing with patients to try to help them in their development and rehabilitation were not working, that his patients were not getting better. And so he became very frustrated, and he started to develop his own ways of helping his patients with developmental issues, brain injuries, special needs, to help them develop faster. And he did that by discovering treatments that uh, create or drive a phenomenon called neuroplasticity, which is the human brain's ability to change when it is given stimulation and when specific activities are performed. And so he basically created a neuroplasticity program, a program focused on enhancing brain development. Now, he started with patients, as I said, with developmental issues, with special needs. And when he did that, when he was able to improve brain development, the symptoms that they had, speech problems, learning difficulties, mobility issues, seizures, right? Developmental issues in almost every area. As the brain developed, those symptoms started to decrease, and in some ways, and sometimes even completely disappear. And so Glenn Doman's programs, which really were started in the 1950s and over the last 7 years have continued to be modified and innovated and developed, that system is called the Doman Method. And so what we do at Doman International is we teach families of children with special needs how to do this holistic program called the Doman Method with their children. Now, what ended up happening, and Ava, I'm not exactly sure what part of our program would be of most interest to you. As he created new ways, this is Glenn Doman, as he created new ways to help children with special needs and developmental delays grow faster, he realized, wow, if these things are enhancing brain development for children with neurodevelopmental issues, why wouldn't they help all kids? And so that led him into a whole new field of early childhood education and early child development. And so I think you probably didn't hear this part, Ava. We talked earlier about, the early learning programs that we do, our early reading program, early math program. We have an encyclopedic knowledge program uh, for children without any kind of neurodevelopmental delays. So the Doman Method is a program that could help any child, regardless of their medical history. So we have Doman International, which is our organization for families of children with special needs. And then we also have another kind of sister company, Doman Learning, which is all about early childhood education and courses and materials that parents can use to teach their children at home. All right, that was my fast attempt at explaining it. Colleen, anything else you want to add to that? Anything I missed?
No, I think just really emphasizing the idea that the whole Doman method, the whole approach is about the brain, the realizing every human being's full potential. So that's why it can help to speed the brain growth of children who have neurological issues, or adults, I should say, because my own grandfather benefited from that. He was in a horrible car accident in 1980. He was in a coma. He was paralyzed on his right side. And then when he came out of the coma, my parents started a Doman Method program with him because they had the information then, and thank goodness they did. So anyway, so yeah, it's effective for anybody with a brain. So if you have a neurotypical child, there's so much that you can do. Even tiny little changes in the way that you look at how they grow and develop, I think can really pay big dividends in terms of your engagement with them too. I think it makes for a closer parenting relationship as well when you realize like you really have the keys to helping your kid learn, and yeah, it makes it more fun.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah,
does.
the brain is the command center of the body. So, it controls everything we do, from our ability to learn to our ability to speak and move and use our hands. And so, yeah, when you improve the function of and the development of the command center, everything can start to get better. We have a comment here on Instagram from Annabella who said, I discovered the program after seeing a mother with the most functional Down syndrome child I had ever seen in my life. After working with the Doman program for 4 years, and now seeing that child after the program. And then Annabella goes on to say, I'm seeing emerging milestones in my own daughter that I never could imagine seeing before. Thank you, Annabella. By the way, I do want to say to everyone joining, if you joined us earlier, we had Mariam, a mom, join us and ask some questions. If you're interested in, joining our webinar in future weeks, coming on video with Colleen and I and asking us questions, doesn't matter whether you're brand new to the program or you've been doing the program for years. In fact, I think it would be good to have families who have been on our program for years talk a bit about their experience. Shoot us a message. Doesn't matter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Shoot us a direct message. Just say, hey, I'm interested in coming on and asking questions during the webinar, and we'll send you an invitation and make that happen. All right. I don't see any other questions. I'll give everyone maybe 30 more seconds to put any questions into the comment box. And if we don't get any more, we'll sign off. Colleen, any final thoughts you want to leave people with?
I guess it's the Doman method, and again, I grew up in it, so obviously I'm going to be biased. I had a great childhood. I feel it gave me a lot of confidence as a parent. I love telling other families about it, but I think sometimes parents get a little concerned. Oh, I don't know if I'll have time to do this. But the truth is, if you understand the why, if you read a book or take our course, if you understand why you're doing these things, the how is going to you'll be able to figure out the how in your own life, because ultimately it's got to be something that grows in your own life. Otherwise it doesn't make any difference anyway. It's like any self-help course, or book that you might have read or taken. But I think it really does have the power to inform parents in terms of just how they're relating to their kids development, and it's very empowering. So yeah, I'd say go for it. Read a book, email me. I see Spencer just put my email address up there. Any questions you have about what we do and how we can help, that's what we're here for.
Perfect. All right. Well, Colleen, thanks so much for joining me. Thank you to Mariam for joining us as well. And everyone will be back next week. All right.
Terrific.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.